Return to open session. Can we have a motion?
Moved.
Mr. Sparta, second. Mr. Sweeney, all in favor?
Aye.
We are in open session. Before we move on to item F, approval of the minutes, just have a brief statement. Good evening. Thank you for joining us for our August Board of Education public meeting. Many members of the public are attending this evening's meeting as part of our virtual audience on the district's YouTube channel. At each of our meetings, there are two public participation portions. We welcome members of the public who are in attendance, both in person and virtually, to participate during those times. If you are attending this meeting virtually and wish to have your comment or question read into the record during the public participation portion of the meeting, the comment must be entered into the YouTube live stream chat once the floor has been open to public comments. Comments entered outside of this time will not be read into the record. As an additional note, if you have a question or comment that is specific to your child's school or schedule, the best way for you to get the most accurate information possible is always by first contacting your child's teacher or building principal. Thank you for your continued understanding and cooperation as we work to maintain open lines of communication with the public. Okay. Item F is approval of the minutes. And can we have a motion for approval of items F1 through 6?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Sweeney, questions or comments? If board members need to abstain for individual items, they can vote yes or no, or say abstain as noted. Okay, seeing no questions or comments, can we please have a roll call vote?
Abstain number 1 through 6.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes, abstain from items 1 and 2.
Mr. Nunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
You're muted, Natalie.
Yes.
There you are.
Mr. Chili?
Yes, abstain on items 5 and 6.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item G is a statement from Mr. Kepnes, who is the business administrator and board secretary, who you'll see on the agenda has indicated that he will be retiring. Mr. Kepnes.
Yes. Well, as the board knows, I contacted each one of you, and I want to thank you for being supportive regarding retirement. I did let Ms. DeVito know about a week and a half ago that I would be retiring in 60 days. October 16th would be my last day. As I was reflecting, the decision came from really reflecting in the state of the state. It's little to do with Vernon per se, but much to do with Sussex County. I am concerned that Sussex County losing an amount of state aid that it's losing could slip into what I call a local depression, and I worry about that. Secondly, add that to the pandemic and the chaos that it's created. I made a personal decision to put in for my retirement. That being said, those are my personal reasons, but I wanted to just say to this board and former boards, I don't know if any former board members are watching, Vernon has been great to me, so I thank you folks individually. I thank this community. I've been here over 10 years. I feel like part of my family is in Vernon. I know I don't live here, but I spend more time here than where I do live. So I appreciate Vernon, the former mayors, the council members that I've met along the way, and I only have positive things to say. It's not my particular job. It's, like I said, the state of the state. It's a marathon sprint that needs to end for Steve Kepnes. So here I am, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank
And,
you, Steve.
really wish you well in your next chapter. And thank you for always being a very willing partner when you work with the board.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're going to be very missed, my friend.
Thank you. Likewise. Yeah, we do well together.
Absolutely, Steve. Thank you for all your years of service. I don't know what we're going to do without you, so.
I'm never far. So.
Okay. Item H is correspondence.
I'm sorry, I was distracted.
You're
We have
distracted by retirement. is what you're distracted by.
I'm still working.
Drop the mic.
We have received a letter from this employee for an extension of their medical leave. We've heard from Todd Poinkowski, Donna Pitch, Mary Freitas, Kristen Shade, Patricia Stahl, myself. Another maternity leave of absence request, change to the start of a previously approved maternity leave, and Michelle Beauvais.
Okay.
On the addendum, I believe, right, Mr.
yeah,
Kempton?
Yes, Donald Plock and Joyce Leung have also sent us correspondence.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kepnes. Item I is the President's Report. Good evening. In this evening's President's Report, I'm going to speak to an issue that has become increasingly relevant in recent days. In neighboring towns, we have seen the heated public debate surrounding the start of the 2020 school year reach a fever pitch on social media this last week, as some comments, posts, and conversations have turned personal and counterproductive and lacking in understanding. Our town and our school district are not unaffected by these conversations, so I feel an obligation to address them in some way. What I am sharing is my particular view on this topic, so I want to be clear. These comments are my own, and I don't mean to misrepresent the board in any way. Let me be clear that public school employees who believe that the school year should begin virtually are not selfish or lazy. They are scared for their health and for the health of their students and community. They are hard workers who go above and beyond for our students every day. And even though some feel that beginning the school year online is what's best, I'm sure that they also wish that we were in a position where they could greet their students in person as they have for years before. Parents and families who want to go back to school in person are also not heartless or careless. Many of them are also concerned about the effects of this terrible virus. They are concerned for their children, and they're worried about their jobs and livelihoods. They're the mother of a special needs child who maybe hasn't received in-person PT or OT in 6 months. They're the parent of a child with behavioral disabilities who look to the resources offered by our public schools as the only thing saving their child. They're a single parent who doesn't know how they're going to pay their mortgage if they can't get to work every day. So many members of our community are scared right now, including teachers, parents, and students. Ultimately, everyone wants to return to normal, even if that isn't possible yet. There's no single right answer, and everyone has a compelling reason for why they think a certain path might be best. Sometimes we forget to assume positive intentions from those with positions opposed to our own. Sometimes we'd rather label those with opposing views with adjectives or unkind comments on social media that fit them neatly into boxes that are easy to blame or scapegoat. We're not out of the woods yet on this crisis, and there is still a long, uncertain road ahead of us. Whatever format our schools take in September or October or November or December, we have to remember that why we are here in the first place, for our students, to educate, nurture, and care for children. In this crisis, those same children are looking to the adults in the room as examples of how to act and how to treat each other. In Vernon, there has been a campaign called the Pledge to Pause. The purpose of this pledge is to stop and think before we write something on social media that might hurt or negatively impact someone else. I urge everyone in our community to live by this pledge, to pause before writing on social media and put ourselves in someone else's shoes and think about how our words affect others. The 2020-2021 school year is not going to be normal or easy for many reasons. It's going to be a heck of a lot harder still if our town follows the examples of some others and we tear each other apart. Let's lift each other up, remember the common ground and shared purpose that binds us together, and continue to practice understanding and empathy. Thank you.
Very well said.
Thank you,
Mr.
Justin. That was outstanding.
Thank you. Item J is committee reports.
I'll start if that's okay. The negotiations committee did meet this past Monday, the 24th. We have one outstanding item remaining, but it was a very good discussion, and I think we are very close. And I'm optimistic that things could wrap up. My hopes would be in the September timeframe, but we're made much progress.
Thank you, Mr. Chili.
We had buildings and grounds. We had a 5-hour tour, which was a ton of fun on Tuesday. So thank you, Mr. Kepnes.
Pleasure.
Daryl. And we had a special guest. Vicki had come along with us, and you enjoyed yourself, right, Vicki? I did my So 5 hours, we were all together. We addressed a lot of concerns, and we got to see everything that was going on in every single school. We went through a day in the life of each individual room of each school. So I was very pleased with the outcome of that. I was grateful to Ms. Davino for allowing us to have a cross-section of attendees.
Yeah.
And I really think that it was a good tour and a lot that went on in it. Ooh.
It was very informative. I wasn't able to attend the whole time. You and your team are dedicated. And, it was great to be in the buildings to see things up close.
Yeah, I thank everybody that participated as far as showing us the different nuances of what went on in each individual school, the cleaning of the units, things like that. So it was very, very helpful to understand.
Steve,
thank
did you put your retirement letter in before or after that 5-hour tour?
I did.
Was it before?
I did joke with Steve and say, "You're quitting because of me," right?
No, never.
So thanks,
Thank you,
Steve.
Kelly. Any other committee reports this evening? Okay. Seeing none, item K is public participation for items on the agenda only and any student comments. There's a disclaimer statement on the agenda, as always. We'll first begin with members of the public who are here in person. And if you would like to make a comment, you have 5 minutes. If you could please step forward, state your name, part of town, and you'll need to just try to speak into the microphone that's on the stool located right up there.
Stand next to the camera.
Okay, next to the camera, there is also a microphone.
I'm going to address the reopening. Would you prefer me to wait till the second participation?
Mr.
I
Vino?
do have remarks in my superintendent's report. I certainly don't have I don't want to have Vicky wait until the end. It's a long agenda, but that's
I mean,
the call of
there's
the
numerous items on the
association.
agenda that do relate to reopening the schools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
For once, right?
Careful.
Thank you, Ms.
Thanks,
Smith.
Right next to the camera.
Next to the camera, because see the fuzzy squirrel on the camera? That's the microphone, so if you stand right next to it, it'll be good.
Fuzzy squirrel.
That's all I call it.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Annunziata, for those kind words. You are absolutely correct in that our educators do want to work. We do want to get back into the classroom. First, I would like to thank Ms. Mitchell for her invitation to tour the school I'm sorry, it's Vicki Smith, Walnut, live in the Lake Walk Hill section of Vernon. I am an English teacher at the high school, and I am the president of the VTEA. I always forget that part. First, I'd like to thank Ms. Mitchell for her invitation to tour the school buildings this past Tuesday with the Building and Grounds Committee. It was an interesting and informative tour. Viewing the large boilers and machinery reminded me of when I toured the inside of the Hoover Dam. It looked really cool, but don't ask me how it works. As VTEA president, I appreciate the majority of my questions were answered and the concerns of my members were taken seriously. I also appreciate the tremendous amount of work, in addition to the regular summer duties, that our custodians and maintenance personnel have been performing for the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff. Our secretaries have also been going above and beyond in dealing with blue groups, gold groups, virtual groups, revising schedules, addressing parent concerns, fielding questions from students, parents, and staff, all while completing their usual summer duties. This doesn't surprise me. It is well known that the custodial, maintenance, and secretarial personnel are the ones that make our school buildings run. Only now, they're doing it under the most difficult of circumstances. Our VTSD educators this summer have been and continue to spend hours upon hours developing new ways to be able to teach their students in ways we never dreamed we'd have to. Zoom, Screencastify, Edpuzzle, Loom, Smart Learning Suite, Kami, Schoology, Flipgrid, and more. And people couldn't handle it when Facebook recently changed their look We are responsible for changing everything we used to do to prepare for the school year. It is overwhelming and challenging, but we are persevering for our students. Everyone, including our administration and the Board of Education, has been working hard during these very trying times. There is no question about that. One thing has not changed, though. The fact there is a highly communicable, debilitating, and often deadly virus amongst us, and bringing students back into the school buildings will increase the risk of someone contracting it. It is with this in mind that I will say what I have said publicly at previous meetings. For the health and safety of our students, our faculty, and our staff, it is the VTEA's position that we should not reopen our school buildings. True, the ambiguous and arbitrary guidelines set forth by the New Jersey Department of Education and Governor Murphy have been met, and everything looks good on paper. But we're not dealing with paper. We are dealing with people, and people are fallible. We all know that there will be a student who is sent to school even though they've recently visited a hotspot state without quarantining. There'll be a student who's sent to school after a parent has given them a fever reducer. There'll be a student who will defy wearing a mask, will forget to wash their hands, will not keep socially distanced. It is not only students we have to worry about. There will be those adults who don't believe in quarantining, who will not wear their mask properly, who will forget to wash their hands, and who think COVID is no big deal. And this is where the problem lies. We are only as strong as our weakest link, and it will just be a matter of time before there's a COVID outbreak in our school buildings. I am well aware I have been a thorn in the side, many of your sides, and that is because at the end of the day, I want to be able to lay my head on my pillow knowing I have done everything in my power to protect the health and safety of my members and our students. In asking the board to reconsider the reopening of buildings, I hope you may be able to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Do any other members of the public who are in attendance in person this evening have any comments or questions? Okay. Okay, and I don't believe that any comments or questions have come through on the live stream at this time. So, sure.
One more opportunity.
Sure. I know there's a slight delay, right, Matt?
Yeah, it's about 10 to 12 seconds. Right?
Okay. Is there one coming through, Matt?
Someone says they sent one, but I didn't see it, so if you just give me one more second to try to find that.
Okay, and if not, we can have that comment read at the second public comment section.
I think it's only that one, so I'll
Okay,
try.
so we'll read that comment in during the second public comment section if we're able to fix the technical issues. So seeing no other comments, we will close it to the public at this time. Item L is the superintendent's report. Ms. Davino?
Thank you, Mr. Annunziata. I'm going to start with my report that I sent to the board that I will, of course, give to Ms. Smith to post, Jen Smith, not Vicki Smith, Jen Smith to post on the district website, after the meeting has concluded. The Vernon Township School District Central Office Administration continues to work with the leadership of the VTEA for the reopening of schools. Although our plan for the reopening of schools has been provided to the New Jersey Department of Education and posted on the school district website, the leadership of the VTEA is still concerned, rightly so, about the pending reopening. I too remain concerned about safety and health for everyone. The district has met all the requirements of the New Jersey Department of Education plan. It has been approved by the county office and JDOE. Out of an abundance of caution and to continue to work with the leadership of the VTEA, I have reviewed the NJEA checklist, which is a set of recommendations, not requirements, for school districts in New Jersey. It was published on July 28, 2020. We meet almost every recommendation, even though we are not required to. In an effort to work with the VTEA, Chuck, Steve, and I met with the leadership team of the VTEA last week. We accommodated their needs regarding pushing the first day of school for students back by 2 days to support teachers' professional learning. As our public knows, we're beginning school on September 8th. The VTA President, Mrs. Smith, attended the Buildings and Grounds tour of all 5 buildings hosted by Ms. Mitchell, Chair of the Buildings and Grounds Committee. I've followed up with Mrs. Smith regarding the tour and continue to work with the leadership for a successful reopening of schools. I did want to publicly thank Mrs. Smith for attending that tour. I think it was really helpful for me to see things from another perspective. And I think sometimes you can only do that when you have somebody side by side with you saying, I have a question about this, or I'm not sure about this, or can you get me more information about this? So I think it was a great exercise for myself, as well as, I hope, obviously, for the members of the board and for Vicki, but I'm really glad she was there. The next part of my, my discussion has to do with the BA search process, to give the board an update. My recommendation to replace Mr. Kepnes is to appoint an interim business administrator, as well as to advertise for a full-time replacement business administrator. We've already begun contacting available interim BAs who agree to work in Sussex County. They'll be vetted by me due to Mr. Kepnes' 60-day notice of retirement. I was on the phone with several of them today. In addition, for the members of the board, and of course it'll be available for the public as well, I'm providing the equitable hiring process attached to my report for you, which was used for the appointment of our Director of Special Services. It is my recommendation that we utilize the same process. I would like to have 3 board members who are willing to serve on the search committee for our replacement business administrator board secretary, and a posting for the vacancy will be out shortly. I think it might go out tomorrow. I did approve it today in the office. Do you want me to ask for members of the board, or would you like me to continue?
I think we should, this is a good opportunity to do that.
So if there are 3 board members who would be interested in working with me on the search for the BA, don't all volunteer at once.
I'd like to be on.
I would like to do it.
Whoa, look at that.
Hey, we have all
I'd
the
like to do it
goodness.
as chairman of Buildings and Grounds. I think that's
I
important.
heard Brad, Joe, Kelly, but there were also people on the, were there people virtual? Natalie, too?
Yeah, I did. Although
Jen.
if it's going to go beyond January, then it wouldn't be appropriate for me.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it should not. Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Vino, you will have to make a selection of 3 of every board member. I will withdraw from consideration on that. Other board members can participate, but you'll have to select 3
I
board
think
members.
I heard Brad, Joe, Natalie, Kelly,
Teresa said
and
And Jen.
almost everyone.
yes.
Well,
Did Mark say
Mark,
yes?
did you say you were interested?
I was going to say yes, but with that kind of participation, you don't need another
Wow.
name. So.
Yeah, so everybody but Mark or I.
great. So I get to make the choice. Thank you.
You are the superintendent.
I will make the choice. I'll get back to that. Thank you for.
I have a suggestion about the hiring process. Perhaps we can, since the board secretary, business administrator works very closely with the board, perhaps maybe the final 2 could come to a full board for an interview process. Maybe, have standard questions drawn up ahead
Yeah.
of time so that we can have a look at, say, the final 2. It's just a suggestion.
Yeah,
It's
I
whatever.
don't think it's a bad suggestion, Joe. I've had the opportunity, good, bad, or indifferent, to replace BAs in the past. Sorry, Steve. In my previous district. And we did bring, I brought 2 candidates to the board. Ironically, it was prior to the ruling that talked about board members being part of higher-level interviews, but I had
There
used
is an
board
eth-
members anyway.
Yeah, there is an ethics opinion on the subject.
Right.
To how that should look.
Yeah, so I
think
wanna
we should
double check
we should
that.
revisit what the ethics
Okay.
opinion was on that. But it is a good suggestion, and if we're able to do that
I mean,
for
if
the
2
finalists-
candidates meet the full requirements,
Yeah.
of course.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
the ethics we learned in the director was that the board members sit and they're quiet, and it's an observatory role only. That's it. No questions, not allowed to participate.
That's
nothing of
different
that
than the ethics, well, you might be talking about two different things. I'm
I
sorry,
think,
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
Teresa and I are referring to the same opinion. 'Cause
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
the
we were
board
on it
actually
Right,
together.
it's an
discussed it.
observation.
However,
Observational.
because it's the board secretary position, does that fall under the
I'm not
purview
sure.
of the board
Yeah.
in any expanded way?
Okay, so,
So we should look into that, and that's a very good
yeah,
suggestion.
for sure. But seeing that there are so many people interested, I thank you. I can tell you that Mr. Kepnes did obtain a list from New Jersey ASBO of available folks, retired, people who can come in and be school business administrators on a temporary basis. And I did have the opportunity to speak to a few today. So the interim piece is something that I do have to work expeditiously on. But the permanent full-time person is somebody where I would need this committee. So I'll keep everybody informed on where we are with both the interim as well as with somebody to replace Steve on a
Are you
permanent
planning on
basis.
having the interim come in for a couple weeks to work with Steve, or?
It depends on how quickly I can find someone, and it's a great suggestion for transition. I would hope that we can get somebody approved so that they can be here before. Luckily, Steve, we still have till October 16th, right? So, yes, that would be my vision, Brad. It depends. Sometimes there are parameters under which the retired folks can work. You know, they can only work 2 years, but some of them can only make a certain amount of money. It depends on, what they collect in Social Security. So that really all depends on who the candidate is.
Because we would have to have a recommendation by our second meeting in September,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. So that's what I'm shooting for sure. So, but I will keep everybody informed, and I have some ethics things to follow up on, yes?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to continue with the items on the agenda. So Superintendent's Report, Informational Matters 1A. Rebecca Breesoff, Glen Meadow Middle School 8th grader who appeared in a Marvel Hero Project episode on Disney Plus about Rebecca and her family, began the Mighty Rebecca book drive collecting books on the topic of her episode on the LGBTQ community. Throughout this year, the previous school year, Rebecca collected dozens of books on this topic for all age groups, preschool through high school. Each of the Vernon Township School District schools received a collection of books for their respective libraries. Rebecca's goal of donating the books is to foster empathy, understanding, and appreciation for people who are different from us. While Rebecca donated over 50 books to the Vernon Township School District in the Mighty Rebecca book drive, Rebecca is receiving hundreds of books from donors around the world. Rebecca continues to match her books with other communities. In addition, earlier this year, Rebecca was interviewed on the Tamron Hall Show and was featured in People magazine for our contribution to the LGBTQ community. I'd like to offer a special thanks, special gratitude to Rebecca for all of her hard work and continuing to give back to our community. Letter B, Glen Meadow Middle School, this is wonderful news, has been accepted into Cohort 5 of the Rutgers School Climate Transformation Project. The School Climate Transformation Project is an initiative designed to provide support to school safety and school climate teams in K-12 New Jersey schools in developing a positive and inclusive school climate. SCTP consultants, support school leadership teams in using the New Jersey School Climate Survey to drive systems change to address school climate needs. Teams take part in SCTP training and customized consultations as part of an overall school climate improvement process that involves developing and implementing a data-driven school climate improvement plan. Glen Meadow is proud to be partnering with Rutgers in this multi-year program. The current school climate team and the advisors of the Ethics Council, Mrs. McDougall and Ms. Digman Corbett, will be working in conjunction with the facilitators of this program. Letter C, VTHS Spring Boys Volleyball Team for the 5th year in a row has received the USMS AVCA honor record-breaking 1,313 teams for academic excellence. Mr. Jeff DeYoung is the varsity coach, and Mr. Matt Sorensen is the assistant coach. Some facts regarding this honor are: there are 35 boys high school teams. We were the only team from New Jersey. We had an overall GPA of 88.62% for the school year. We had the option of counting only the fall and marking period too, but we counted the entire year. And this is the 5th consecutive season. The first was in 2016. So congratulations to the high school boys volleyball team and their coaches. What an honor, great job to not only our students, but our coaches as well. Letter D, I don't know if this is an item that needs approval, Chuck?
No, I just
It's
wanted
just
to
for information?
recognize that the sick bank has awarded an employee those days.
Okay, that's,
I'll be reaching out to the sick bank tomorrow because we need 3 additional days.
Okay, so the sick bank is approved 3.5 sick bank days for employee number 6766. And I do have two other items on the addendum. The first one on the addendum under informational items is the Board of Education ethics discussion. This is something that we talked about, I think, at our last meeting.
No, it was an email.
Was it July?
It was an email.
I don't remember. Okay, it was an email. But we have been discussing with the board about various types of training. We've talked about everything from strategic planning to retreats. I know Brad likes the retreats a lot.
Never again.
And ethics. So we did say that it would be on as a discussion item in upcoming meetings. So here it is.
So I did email the board with this as a suggestion 2 weeks ago. It's some districts, as a best practice on an annual basis, do a board ethics training. They can be hosted either by NJSBA or the board attorney. And it's to go through the New Jersey School Board members' code of ethics to make sure that, we're all on the same page, we're all on the same team, that we're all operating from the same set of guidelines. And it's really just a preventive measure so that we can perform as a highly performing team, working together well. The ethics, the code of ethics is really like a set of guardrails for board members. And boards that, invest time and energy into training are more effective boards. And I think it's a suggestion worth considering. Having a separate meeting for board ethics training some point in the next month or so.
I agree, Justin. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you, Natalie. Obviously, this would only be something we'd move forward with if there were at least 5 members in favor. So I'd like to see where the rest of the board stands.
I'd be happy to attend, so that's fine.
Okay.
I'm good.
Brad is good.
Sure.
Joe?
What are we up to?
That's fine.
We're up to 5.
Oh, there you
Okay.
Oh, are we?
I'm okay with it, yep.
Okay, so the two formats that are options are NJSBA or the board attorney. There's pros and cons to both. The board attorney, it would be 2 hours probably, was the estimate I received from Ms. Simon, that for her to host the training for us. NJSBA, their trainings are typically free. The benefit to going with the board attorney is that almost everything that NJSBA will always say to you will be finished with a sentence of, but consult your board attorney. So if we want to get specific advice and if we really want to hear right from the authoritative source for our board, I think that the board attorney does offer that.
I think that would be more interactive, don't you think?
With the board attorney?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'd probably be we'd get more out of the training.
Well, if we're going to do it, I think that we should get the maximum out of it. So.
I agree.
And I think when you're dealing with ethics and ethics opinions and so on and so forth, they're legal opinions. So
Right,
it
exactly.
should be coming from an attorney and not an NJSBA employee that may not come from their law department, so.
Right.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
All right, so if there's no opposition to that method, we'll go ahead and reach out to Nathania about scheduling something and see what works for her calendar and get something on the calendar for, the month of September after the restart of school.
We're not going to do it in conjunction with a board or work session, right? It's going to be.
This would be
additional.
standalone, I think, so we're not doing it half effort. We're giving it a good attention.
So set up a standalone.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll reach out to Nathania tomorrow morning.
Good.
Great.
All right, thank you, everyone.
The last item on the superintendent's report is letter B. It says state aid update. What I can tell you is that there have not been further reductions in state aid based on the numbers that came out from Governor Murphy earlier this week. But I did ask Mr. Kepnes to share some additional information.
So there's a recent notice that came out. If you remember, the state of New Jersey, we get 2 state aid payments a month from September to June. They withhold the June payments, and we get them late. We get them in July. And the question at that time is, do we have a cash flow issue? And do we need to take out a short-term loan? And this recent year, we did not. and then we get the state aid, the June aid in July. Well, the recent notice came out again, yesterday, saying the 2 September aid payments will be delayed until October, and over the next day or 2 or 3, they give a very short turnaround. Make sure you fill out the application if you feel you need the short-term loan. And it doesn't cost the board, because if it's for the week or week and a half of interest, I don't know, $2,000, $3,000 of interest, the state picks up the cost for the interest. So you would then get wired your state aid in October, plus the $2,000 to $3,000 in interest. Long story short, we will not need a loan. Our cash flow is going to be fine. The town has been great in terms of timeliness with getting the tax levy check. But the reason we don't need a loan is because of the status of the budget ending last school year with the pandemic and the unspent funds. So there's more money in the bank than we normally would have. In a normal situation, we may have needed a loan because you go all summer long without getting any state aid, so any cushion gets spent over summer months, and then in September, you get that state aid. But we will not be in any crisis in terms of needing a loan. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kepnes.
Okay, number 2A moves on to recommendations. There are also some
why don't we-
on the addendum. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Okay.
Nope, you're good.
So starting with the regular agenda, but also moving on to the addendum 2A, it is recommended that the board approve the following faculty staff resignations, retirements, terminations, leaves, transfers, assignment changes, appointments, stipends, salary adjustments, student teaching, mentoring as listed. Please note that all aid and pandemic response assistant appointments are pending to the opening of school and subject to change. It begins at the bottom of page 4 on our regular agenda. That table goes through several pages, I
Okay.
believe to the bottom of page 8, and there's also a small table on the bottom of the blue addendum for the members of the board.
Can we please have a motion for recommendation 2A?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Ms. Bucieri, questions or comments?
Yes, there's one adjustment on the people that are covering for Mrs. Brand's retirement. Instead of them starting on 10/2, they will start on 9/1. Those 4 appointments are on the bottom of page 5 and the top of page 6, where it says that they are going to start 10/2. They will instead start 9/1, and that is because we had a maternity change just this week, and we have adjusted, so Mrs. Brand will be covering that maternity for the 1 month that she will be working before she retires. Thank you very much, Norma, for all your service, because she'll be retiring 10/1. So we're moving those 4 back to 9/1.
Okay. Mr. Sparta, did you have a question about wording on something?
Oh, there it is.
It's on the addendum.
Yeah. The appointment of Matt Shea for the stipend to do the board meetings. We had the discussion last week, and I was kind of looking more for that $312.50 for each board meeting to be approved, but then approve the people to do each meeting. Because as of right now, how it's on the agenda, we have a stipend amount of $7,500 that only Matt's getting approved for. So if Matt in November doesn't want to do the recording, he's technically been approved for that stipend, and no one else can do it.
We could remove his name and say board meeting video stipend, and then put it the way it's then stated.
Is it $312.50 for each meeting?
I mean, we do have, we have positions in the district where people are doing things after hours, whether it be crowd control at a football game or doing the clock at the basketball game or whatever it may be, and we don't approve those people for each individual event.
Right, they get a
Right, they're just on
paycheck.
the
They get a
bills.
paycheck
doing
out
Put
of
it in a
meetings or
time
whatever
sheet.
activity count. And I think that is more applicable in this situation. And I talked to Matt outside. This is nothing against Matt. I think he deserves that money. It's just more of a concern of how it's on the agenda, how it's worded, and what the future ties us into. That's all.
So we can create the position and treat it
Yeah,
how we
board
treat
meeting
the
video
other.
stipend,
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
and remove Matt's name.
I mean, that's if everybody else is in agreement with it, or
I think that
5
makes
people.
sense. Okay, can we have a motion to amend?
I'll make a motion to amend that.
Okay, motion to amend by Mr. Sparta, as indicated. We have a second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, all in favor on the motion to amend?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Okay, the motion to amend carries. Any other questions or comments on the now amended motion? Okay, seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
No.
Mr. Annunziata?
Abstain?
Mr. Cherry?
Yes.
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
No.
Motion carries.
Okay, item B. Thank you. Page 9.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Letter B, it is recommended that the board approve combining 2 open part-time custodial positions into 1 full-time custodial position and post for the vacancy.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2B?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, questions or comments?
Is there a reason why we're
Yeah.
doing this?
I think part of the concern, and Steve can fill in the blanks, excuse me, part of the concern is that, we really do get more work out of full-time people than we do out of part-timers. I know that it includes, benefits. However, I think the challenge that we're being faced with is that our custodial folks are spread pretty thin, and having a full-time person rather than 2 part-time people, I think we feel we would get a little bit more out of that employee, but I think this is Steve's department, so I'm going to ask him to
No, that's,
expand on that.
that's exactly right. As a reminder, we had, at this point, we do have 2 part-time openings, and it's in the name of, it ties to the pandemic, but it's in the name of trying to get a more reliable, if you will, consistent person.
Is this in addition to the recommendation in the addendum?
This,
Item 2G?
yeah, this, hold on. Yes, this
Yeah,
would
these
be
are
an
separate
addition.
positions.
Sorry?
These are separate positions.
These are
right?
separate,
Separate.
yes.
And I think this kind of is almost exactly the opposite of what we had a conversation with about maybe a month or 2 ago. We talked about part-time custodians. So, I mean, maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but it seems like it's a complete turn on what you had decided to do.
Yeah, I recognize that, Natalie. I think, quite honestly, after doing the Buildings and Grounds tour, the other day, and Steve's going to share an analysis a little bit later on, we really do need some additional help in our custodial positions to make sure that we have our buildings as clean as possible.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
No.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
No.
Mr. Chili?
No.
Mrs. Coughlin?
No.
Mrs. Mitchell?
No.
Motion does not carry.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Letter C, it is recommended that the board approve professional development travel that complies with the provisions of New Jersey statutes annotated NJSA 18A:11-12, attachment A.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2C?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter D, it is recommended that the board approve the following list of part-time aides, full-time aides, registered behavior tech, and RPOs as part of the recertification virtual SCM, Safe Crisis Management Training. Training will be paid at the indicated hourly rate, 4.5 hours total for aides, 8 hours total for RPOs, and 8 hours total for the registered behavior tech.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2D?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, questions or comments?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, did the number of aides that we had prior to this vote go up or down either way
The
from
ones-
last year?
The ones that need to be trained, Teresa?
Yeah.
I do not know. I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't have that information.
It's just those two listed, right? Am I missing something?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Two on the list.
It's just the two on the list, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Letter E, it is recommended that the board approve the revised 2020-2021 school calendar, attachment B.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2E?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, questions or comments? And as you
Oh,
noted
can I
earlier in
just
the
say-
meeting, Mr. Vino, the new start
Start
date
date.
is
that
September
is
8th.
Correct.
It has September 8th on it.
Right.
Thank you very much, Ms. Davino, for doing that.
Yeah.
I think that was really important.
Yeah, it was, we met with the union last week and fully understand that our teachers need as much time as possible to prepare for what's going to be a challenging start to the year, so,
I think it was a really wise decision.
thank you.
Okay. Roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Abstain?
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Letter F, it is recommended that the board approve the list of aides for the 2020-2021 school year pending opening of school and subject to change, attachment C.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2F?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, questions or comments?
Yeah, so I'm gonna bump down and ask my question again the second time. Did the number of aides go up or down significantly from last year to this year?
It went
Yes.
down significantly.
Oh, yeah.
It went down significantly?
Yes.
What was driving that change?
The fact that almost 32% of our students are virtual,
Right.
Okay.
and also the blue and gold did affect some of the hours that aides will be working because students would be either blue or gold.
Okay.
And then what happens if we have the blue and gold now, but let's say November, school goes back to 5 days a week, then what happens? And everyone's back in together?
We would then go through the process of bringing back our aides.
Right,
Then
or
you'll
adding
rehire.
hours to the existing people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Nunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Letter G, it is recommended that the board approve all certified staff as bedside tutors for the 2020-2021 school year.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2G?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Abstain.
Mr. Sweeney?
Abstain.
Mr. Nunziata?
Abstain?
Motion carries.
Letter H, it is recommended that the board approve the following list of substitute aides, which will include the additional $2.50 an hour for ABA extra stipend, if applicable, only until the district returns to traditional school hours and days.
Do we have a motion for recommendation 2H?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Pateri?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Is
Okay.
there I over on the
Yeah, there is.
addendum?
Oh, yes, there is. Thank you. I was just flipping that over. Letter I. It is recommended that the board approve the additional temporary part-time pandemic response assistance pending school opening at the rate of step 1, $22 an hour, effective September 1st, 2020. There are 3 names listed.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2I?
Mr. Annunziata, may I make a correction before you make a motion?
Sure.
I'd like to strike the middle name and replace it with Kim Rivera.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the name.
I'd like, replace it with Kim Rivera.
Okay.
But we already voted on Kim Rivera.
Yeah, she's on the
She's on the
regular
list,
agenda.
on the main agenda.
Good catch.
Okay, hold on.
It's a very, very good catch, because that was a lengthy
Then
list.
that answers my conundrum.
On page 6, she's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th person down.
Okay,
Those are the two aides we hired. We hired the 3.
thank you. No changes, thank you.
But we're
Okay,
keeping
but
that
what about
middle
the
name
middle
We're
in?
name?
going to keep the middle name, yes.
So we're going from 5 to 8
No.
pandemic response?
Should be, yes.
I thought we talked about just doing 5. No? Am I wrong?
I think the,
Yeah,
what
I
was,
think we just approved 5 or 6, right? We didn't.
5.
I thought it was 5. I
Yes,
thought-
you approved 5. We were looking to increase it to 8, but then the discussion began about the custodians, which is another piece down here on the recommendations for G. So I guess in a general discussion, we should now discuss what we're going to do.
Well, yeah, because I don't see how we can hire 8 if we only approved 5.
Right, okay, so let's hold off. We have in the original document, the 5 people. So let's leave that there. Let's leave the 3 for now. Can we table that?
There's no
We can't.
motion, so
Somebody else
there's
has
no
to
motion at this
table
point.
it.
okay, so we do have to have a conversation about how many pandemic response assistants we feel are needed and necessary in the schools, and then that would probably branch into the conversation regarding custodial positions,
Right.
which is a recommendation on the addendum as well. So,
Right, so there it is. So whatever you want to do, whether you want to table this I and then have a discussion about G, it's completely up to everyone here.
I think we have to have the discussion, let Steve do his presentation.
Sure,
And then,
Yeah.
and then we could circle back.
there you go.
yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, because
Because I
the
think
outcome
that
of G
it's
will
important.
inform.
It's important to.
One way or the other.
Yeah,
have
they
them
affect
kind of
each other.
Together.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so then we
Thank
will
you, Cal.
not, we won't take a motion on I at this time.
No, but we will circle back to
We
it.
will circle back to that conversation. Mr. Vino, does that conclude your report?
Yes, it does.
Okay, Mr. Kepnes. Item M, Business Administrator.
Yes. This is more informational, but I did want the board to know how I was moving forward based on last spring. It's my assumption, and I wanted to inform you, but it's my assumption that the preschool tuition-paying parents would only pay for those days where it's in-person instruction. That's what we did in the spring. That would be my assumption moving forward. So the letters that we send out will reflect a much lesser tuition cost for example, if they're on the blue team and they come on Monday, Tuesday, we would only charge them 2/5 of that week, so to speak, or of that month. So if everyone's in agreement, I would send out the letters so that there's a schedule of tuition payment expected by the parents, because it's going to get confusing. So Jennifer was very helpful in drafting the letter, and we'll get a very specific letter, so there's no confusion on their part about what they need to pay for tuition. Okay.
Okay.
Letter B.
So that letter's just gonna, like, basically have a per diem rate form for the rest
Well,
of the year?
it's, no, it's not per diem rate. I'm doing, for example, in September, I'm doing 40%.
So what's gonna happen when we get to October and they go
Exactly.
3-2?
Good October's 40%.
So it
No.
just spells it out for the whole year?
It's a monthly amount, not a per
that's fine.
diem amount, yes. And then beyond November, since we don't know, it says TBD, and they will get another letter
Okay,
in early November so they can plan for beyond that,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
that was preschool tuition, use of buildings and grounds. I do believe the PAL has canceled. They will not be using Cedar Mountain. And obviously Ziegler is pending that we can get folks in the auditorium at the time, but it is for 2021. Field trips, again, Ms. Gephardt will be using a bus for a podcast. Bottom of page 10, letter D is my certification. And then on to number 2, recommendations. So
Wait
letter
one
A.
second, there's no PAL after-school program
No, she
as of this
canceled.
now.
Yeah,
Well,
Right.
they are, but they're holding it at the PAL.
Okay, okay.
not
Yes.
at our
Not at
school.
Cedar.
Exactly. There is a PAL after-school program. It will not be in our schools. And that was Jeannie's choice.
Okay.
Yeah, we were allowing her to come in.
Okay.
We have a great relationship with them. Karen Davina was very supportive, and she chose, because of her numbers, they're just going to hold it at the PAL.
Right.
Very good.
Understood.
Yep. 2A, it's recommended that the board approve the following financial reports as listed.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2A?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Sparta,
Yes, abstain on check noted.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes,
Mr. Annunziata.
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri,
Yes.
Mr. Chili,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Letter B, it's recommended that the board accept the report of the secretary and the treasurer of school monies closing out the month of July.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2B?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sparta,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
yes,
Mr. Annunziata.
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri,
Yes.
Mr. Chili,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Letter C, it's recommended the board approve the transportation as listed below, which is only one quoted route.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2C?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Pellet,
Yes.
Mr. Sparta,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
yes,
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri,
Yes.
Mr. Chili,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Letter D, it's recommended that the board approve the contracts for services listed below, tuition contracts listed in the chart.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2D?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Ms. Coughlin? Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sparta,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
yes,
Mr. Annunziata.
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri,
Yes.
Mr. Chili,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Pellet.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Thank you. Letter E, it's recommended that the board approve the list of additions and deletions to the fixed asset list.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2E?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, questions or comments?
Steve, the injection system for Lonsberry and Rolling Hills, that's not on here?
Good question. The whole system as a whole is not, no.
Has it been added before? We only do this once a year, correct?
No, it hasn't in terms of equipment. I mean, we did the shed separately. The equipment in the shed, actually, I don't even know that it would qualify as equipment. The shed, I'd have to check to see if we added the shed in the past. I don't remember.
Why wouldn't the equipment inside qualify when you put like a condensing unit on here for air conditioning and stuff like that?
Just the total cost of the equipment. To me, we use a $2,000 threshold.
Okay, all right,
Right,
that's fine.
yes, to determine a fixed asset for equipment, if you will,
Okay.
which the shed would certainly qualify.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Letter F, it's recommended that the board approve submitting an application to the state for the Digital Divide Grant application.
Do we have a motion for recommendation 2F?
So moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Mr. Chili, questions or comments?
What does this mean?
It's a good question.
We're going to try to win it.
Yeah, there was no allocation given to districts. We were informed that there's an application online that all the New Jersey schools should enter, almost in this open-ended, if you will, request and cost for it. It pertains to students who may not have the means for internet or technology.
I see, okay.
Digital divide, so that's the.
People who don't have digital access, people who do.
Right. So Matt helped me get some numbers, and I applied a certain number of Chromebooks, Kajits, if you will, to each school to get a total of about $45,000.
Okay.
And I'm waiting to see, one, if we will get the money, and two, then how do we spend the money? It was a very awkward grant. Usually you're given an allocation first, and then you fill out an application as to telling the state, how will you spend this specific money? In this case, it was very different process.
It was state allocated money, and we're looking for hotspots.
Thank you.
Right.
Do we know how much the state has allocated for the grant in total?
I do not know.
Okay.
It's a couple million
It was a
dollars.
big number. I saw the press conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it somewhere.
Okay, well, hopefully we're able
I
to
don't know
claim.
the number, but it was pretty large.
Good. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote? Yes?
Yes.
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 Thanks for your work on that, Steve.
Sure.
Okay, and on the addendum.
And now, yes, on to your addendum. Justin, if you want to, did you want to start with the recommendation?
Yeah, why don't we start with your recommendation, and then if board members have questions or concerns, they can raise them. If there's a need to amend the recommendation, there can be a motion to amend, and then we can vote. Can we have, do you want to read your recommendation, Steve?
Sure, I'm sorry. It is recommended that the board approve to create 7 additional full-time custodial positions and post for their vacancies. The total estimated cost, inclusive of benefits, is $525,000. Funds would be transferred from the health benefits line account.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2G?
Moved.
Mr. Sparta, second.
Second.
Ms. Coughlin. Now, questions or comments? Steve, do you want to begin?
Yes,
with
if
your
I may,
analysis?
I'm sharing a screen to our virtual board members.
Steve, did you want to talk about how this was brought about?
Sure. Going through the walkthrough. Actually, it goes back to 2 walkthroughs ago.
Right.
Yes.
The Buildings and Grounds Committee and I walked through, we were at the high school. We learned a whole lot about the cleaning process, the equipment that we have. We're very pleased. But the question came up is, to how do we clean these buildings, not after hours, which is what I'm going to share with you. There's standards that we use for cleaning when everyone's out of the building. But more so, how do we clean the buildings during the school day and then after hours to do a better job after hours? And that is going to lead to my analysis. Kelly had asked a question, a very open-ended question, how many more custodians would it take to do what we feel we would need to do to really put out the virus on a daily basis? Then fast forward to Tuesday.
Correct.
We did another walkthrough through all the schools, all 5 schools. Vicki joined us, and the question did come up again. And Daryl and I kind of thought through how can we calculate a justification, if you will, or a theoretical calculation to determine how to do that. So now that leads to my analysis here, and then we can talk about, Teresa, where would this money come from should the board support it? So the first piece is, what are our cleaning spaces? So in these 5 schools, you'll see the square foot listed, which is basically the occupied spaces. We did not include the mechanical rooms or the storage areas. We're not cleaning those on a daily basis. No one's in them on a daily basis necessarily anyway. So you see the square footage. Then in the box down below, standards of cleaning, and these are industry standards. These are not my standards, and these are averages. For example, the industry standard for cleaning, or a general or light cleaning, says that one individual should be able to clean 17,500 square feet in their 8-hour day, which is, this is a gross summary, dusting, dry mop, emptying the garbage. We can do a more specific cleaning, but that same individual, if they want to do better cleaning, if you will only be able to cover 13,000 because they're taking more time and hitting more corners and moving things out of the way to get under them. So they, due to the lack of time, they can only cover 13,000 square feet. And if we're wiping down every wall and every light bulb every day, every lens in every light, they're only going to get to 8,500 square feet to get what I'm calling a spotless cleaning. So with those standards, the next chart with the reddish and blue, at the 17.5, those are the square feet. Those are the full-time equivalents. In Rolling Hills, based on the square footage, you would need 2.65 people to be able to do the 17.5 theoretical cleaning. You would need more people, 3.57 to the right, to do better, and you'd need 5.46 to get to the spotless cleaning. And you can see that chart. In the high school, it makes a huge difference because it's such a big building. I'm looking at the high school. To get to 17.5, you would need 11.33 people, 15 for the next, and then 23 people to get that spotless level cleaning. The question is, what do we have, and what would it take to get to one of these standards? So that's really the next round. So now our custodial staff, and I'm going to complicate this in a minute, and I apologize, but it's important that I complicate this. Under our current full-time staff and then current part-time staff, you can see what we have in each building. For example, Rolling Hills, we got 3 full-time people, we have 3 part-time people. Before I go any further than that, it's important to understand when we're talking about cleaning, the theory is it's cleaning when everyone leaves the building. We do have custodians come in the building at 6 a.m., and they're there in the morning when the kids come in. The coordinating custodians, they're not running around cleaning the classrooms. They are there to support administration and the teachers. They are there to assist in the cafeteria during lunches. That's not necessarily the cleaning that we're talking about. So when I do the analysis, the next column to the right, at the top of the column, it says full-time equivalent less 1.5. So I took the 3 full-timers and the 3 part-timers, and I backed out 1.5 people in every school, because the one is the coordinating custodian, isn't really cleaning, but we still need them there, but we can't count them as a cleaner in our analysis. And the other half, every school has a full-time person come in later in the morning to assist at the beginning of lunches. Half of that next full-time person's day, half of it is tending to the lunches. They're not cleaning classrooms, they're not cleaning bathrooms, they're in the cafeteria dumping the garbage, cleaning up in between lunches, but that's not the cleaning we're talking about. Does everyone so now in that middle column, FTE less 1.5, that's our cleaning staff in full-time equivalents. So in the orange, that's how many more we would need to get to the 13,000. And in the blue, that's how many more we would need if we wanted to hit the spotless cleaning. Now, we're not going to, the 30, at the bottom of each of those, you'll see 11 needed for the 13,000 and 30 needed for the 8,500. Both of those, I hate to say, would break the bank. So Steve got slightly arbitrary in terms of need, but if we're trying, and this is a board decision, board discussion, if we want to get to a better job of cleaning, it's not necessarily just telling our people to do more, because they do the best they can. We would need more hands on deck. That's what we're talking about. Here's my assumption. The salary, step one, is about $45,000. And the benefits, if you hire full-time, I don't know if they would take a single plan, a 2-adult plan, or a family plan. So I used an average of $30,000. A family plan is in excess of $40,000. So using those numbers, the 11 custodians would cost about $825,000. The 30 custodians to get the spotless would be $2.2 million. So I put a recommendation in for 7, which is $525,000 at $45,000 salary each, and I use around $30,000 benefit package each.
But if we had part-time, we wouldn't need the benefit package.
That's true. If we had part-time, we would save 30 by 7, right? 30,000 times those 7 custodians.
So
210,000.
what's more advantageous as far as, why wouldn't we just have because we discussed 3 weeks ago about part-time, how many part-time people would we need? So I'm just wondering, now we're kind of shifting to the full-time, so was there a reason for that?
It's not really, no. To me, the only good reason I have, and that's why it's a board discussion, the only good reason I have is I believe, and we have great part-time people, you do, but many part-time people want a full-time job. So we get that longevity out of that full-time position. We don't run the risk of hiring part-time and then have to hire someone else when that part-timer gets a full-time job. That's all. But yes, it would be a significant savings if we only had part-time people.
No.
Are you advocating, Kelly, for 14 part-time as opposed to 7 full-time, or?
I
what I
would
mean?
rather do that only because of the benefits piece to it.
Also, it's more people.
Of course.
You
And it's
also-
more
You have
people.
14
More of a
people.
blitz.
You'd also, if you compared apples to apples and we're willing to spend the same in both scenarios, you can get more hands out of it. So
Yeah,
that-
I'd rather
mean,
see that
there's-
personally. I don't know how everybody else feels, but that's what we were advocating for a couple weeks ago. We talked about that, and I just think that safety should be our number one concern right now. So I think that this will make sure that everything is clean in between, and I think that's really important. And our responders, we're going to do that as well.
Right, so we could table the other, hold the 5 that we've approved, go with 14 part-time and post tomorrow.
Right. Our thought was that if we had custodial staff, then they would just be custodial staff, and they would just be focused on that cleanliness.
Right.
Got it.
And I think that's,
But-
to me, that's the most important.
I agree, but there's a differentiation we have to keep in mind.
Right.
Because a custodian in the building with the students is not what we're talking about. The custodians in the building with the students who are hitting those high-touch areas, they're not cleaning classroom. Those same classrooms, even if they hit the classroom, would have to be re-cleaned at the end of the day anyway.
Yeah, but they can be,
Yes, they
if
can.
we
But
have
they
an,
can- they
if
can
we have
come
an extra
in.
6 hands in the high
Yes.
school
Mm-hmm.
during the school day, when rooms aren't being used in between classes, those rooms
Yeah.
should be cleaned if we can get people
No,
in there to
that's
clean
true,
them.
but the
That's
minute, if on period 2, that room is cleaned, and someone is in at period
Yeah,
5,
Right.
and that's what it has, I
That's
think
what
that's
the
what we have to be
additional
doing.
hands would be.
I mean,
Yes.
we
No,
need
no, no, I
to,
know.
every time that we have an extra set of hands that can be cleaning, we need to be cleaning.
Yeah.
The first market period, we're not having any lunches, correct?
that's right.
Lunches,
So can't we
correct.
allocate those people that normally come in for the lunches to cleaning?
Yeah, that person, yes, absolutely.
Shouldn't that square footage be backed out of your numbers? I mean, square footage of the cafeteria, square footage of locker rooms, gyms, that should come out of those total numbers, yes?
Not necessarily. For example, that's where the standard becomes an average. For example, a bathroom takes much longer to clean than a classroom. But,
You may still be using some of the, from my understanding, some of the gyms and
That was my
cafeterias
point.
for classes because they're larger rooms.
We will be using a cafeteria. I can tell you right now, Vinny, you can advocate for this. If we are going to use this area for the band,
Because it's a bigger
to
space.
spread them out.
what I was going to say, Mark, though, is if we had more bathrooms, then the person cleaning, that standard kind of falls by the wayside, because bathrooms take longer, and they couldn't get as much done. But then, when you have a gym, which is ultimately, you're just you're pushing the broom along the gym and putting the machine on it, that goes much more quickly.
Right.
So it's an average of 17.5. But then secondly, to Justin's point, yes, we may be using these spaces to social distance, and we won't be eating in the cafeteria, but I can't tell you we won't be using the cafeteria. We likely will be using our cafeterias.
We will be.
That was going to be my follow-up question too, where if we go with total square footage versus the square footage we anticipate using in each of those buildings. So do you anticipate, and again, I'm not sure, but are there going to be certain classrooms, especially with the amount of students coming in, that you're probably not going to use day in and day out? So I'm looking for those numbers to be, hey, the actual square footage we're going to use day in and day out versus total square footage of the building.
I think what Mark's saying is like, if we have, 9-period day up here, right? So if we have one room that's being used 5 periods, but another room being 4, can we consolidate into one room so the other room doesn't have
Well,
anybody in
no, because
all
we want
day?
to go
No,
in
you
and
gotta
out to
spread the
clean
kids
in
out.
between.
Yeah.
But I thought we were talking about all this was after kids were out.
No, we also want to do it
during
in
the day.
between.
No, I understand Mark's point. I just think we're going to need to use as much space as we have
Yes.
to social distance.
Yeah,
I don't know that we
I
can.
don't think
Alright.
the square footage piece, I think we have to leave it alone. I
Can we
think it
back,
has to be the
are
way
these
it is.
people working after the kids are in school or when they're in school?
When they're in school as well, like we're,
But that's not what Steve said
No,
before.
that's-
Steve
that-
said it's gonna be all after
This
school.
analysis is to,
I thought we had said a couple weeks ago that we were saying that we wanted to do in-between classes. So
Yes.
if there was one room that, room 201 is only used first period and third period, second period, we can have that custodial staff
Yes.
in there cleaning it.
Yes.
That's what I would like to see.
That's the vision. And the vision is not to have people standing around waiting for the children to get out of the classroom. So
No,
we
I want
will-
it in between.
In
Yeah, because
between,
I-
and we will talk to the head custodians in each of the buildings and say, what's the best possible use of these people so that the children are taken care of? And then if they can be after school, they can be after school, or we can stagger the schedules. We can
Right.
do anything with, if you're talking about 14 pairs of hands, we can do a lot of
Cycle them
things.
in and out, and
Yeah.
that way, everything's clean,
Yes.
like it's a continuum all day long.
Mhm.
Just like you would do at your home, when this whole COVID started, the minute somebody touched the refrigerator, there I was, cleaning it up. Like, that's the type of cleanliness that I'm looking for.
the answer to that, that's not much of an analysis, is, we would need, I would have to, the analysis would be number of classrooms that we use, because let's say we used every classroom every period. In 3 minutes at the high school, you would need that many people going into each one classroom. However, some classrooms are not used, so they could go into those unused classrooms during periods that those classrooms are, and we back those out.
Right.
I didn't do it that way.
That would be a very simple schedule for the high school administration to put together. They would have
I
a
would think.
9-period day, they would have a
Yeah.
chart, it would be
Yeah.
a giant, I envision a giant chart.
But it's going to be many, many more than
Yeah.
7.
But on Genesis, it shows us which rooms are being
Sure,
used.
so it's
Right.
blacked out,
Yeah.
and then
It's gonna
people
be-
know that they can hit that room during period 2.
Right.
Hit those 12 rooms. During period 3, hit those 10 rooms.
Right, but what about the 50 rooms that happen to get used every period? You
Okay.
need 50 people.
They're not used every period. We do
Right.
not have a lot of rooms that
Yeah.
are used
Okay.
every period.
And that's what we were talking about, that we could cycle in, cycle out.
So-
So if we had those 14 people,
Yeah. I think
I
that
mean-
these questions, Brad and Kelly's question here is really critical, because if the board's going to allocate a couple $100,000 in resources towards additional cleaning staff, we want to make sure we all have a clear understanding of how that money's going to
Well,
be used.
I mean, that's my
Yeah.
vision, is to have the 14 part-time. We're not worried about spending money on benefits, and we're having, everybody in, cleaning in between, and I think that'll help our staff as well feel more secure in the everyday.
I agree, because also, I mean, it's better to have a custodian go in, clean it real quick. I mean, if we're expecting, teachers or students to be cleaning their desks, I don't think
No,
that's
I don't
acceptable.
want- yeah, I
No,
don't
I
want it.
want the custodian to go in, clean it out, with the rotating schedule. Then we have Wednesdays with no one here.
Yeah. We
You know,
talked about the printers the other day
Right,
in the
getting
hallway.
any touchable surface is really just getting wiped down, and then on the day off, really getting in there and cleaning.
I mean, I think that if you have the schools open, this is essential to have extra people cleaning and just dedicated to cleaning.
Yeah, not touching students and cleaning.
Yeah.
No one
Good.
should be cleaning high surface areas and then, keeping that separate.
And then it would be temporary. If we didn't need it anymore, we didn't need it anymore. And please, God, let us not need it anymore. But I think that this is essential. I don't think that this would be anything that we would really debate. We have the money and we have the need, and safety should be the number one priority.
I think Natalie has a question. I have one too. I'll let you go first, so Natalie, I know you've been raising your hand.
We couldn't see you guys,
We shouldn't even
sorry.
debate it. I'm going to debate it. So I guess I'm really kind of confused, because we had the request for the position for the pandemic response part-time temporary position, which was for this time frame to clean these surfaces. I believe there's ones that are going to be there on site when the students are there, and then we have some positions that are going to be coming in after the students
No,
leave for the day.
that's,
Is that
nope.
correct, Steve?
Originally, I had suggested 15.
Yes.
5, we're going to be using the Victory sprayers after hours. We worked more efficiently, let me say, by buying 25 Victory sprayers instead of paying people to use the 5 people to use the Victory sprayers, and we will be handing custodians those Victory sprayers. So we don't need to hire new people to use those sprayers. That brought it from 15 down to 10.
Gotcha.
Then
Okay.
my vision was we would have an AM part-timer in each school and a PM part-timer in each school, which would be 10 over 5 buildings. And the board said, let's just go with the AM person while the kids are in the building and they're doing the high-touch areas. So then, that's hence the 5 that were you just approved. So those 5 will be assigned to a school. They will come in, 10 minutes before the kids come in. They will get that thermometer. They will assist with taking temperatures. They will not touch the students. And then, yes, they will be given their supplies, and for the next 4 hours, they will be disinfecting the high-touch areas. The question is, do we want to go more than those 5?
Here's my question is, so you recommended 15 part-time temporary pandemic response workers. I think the board, maybe not everyone, but the board's final, vote turned out that we approved the 5 and thought if you need more, you could always come back to us for more. And now, instead of saying, before school has even opened, instead of coming back for more temporary part-time workers, you're asking for 7 full-time permanent workers, custodians. So that's just like a huge leap for me. And I'm not going to disagree with the square footage on how much a person can clean. I don't disagree with that at all. I completely understand that. But, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have our buildings clean and safe. We definitely should. It's just, in my mind, I would kind of like to tier this, like we started out with this many, the work is too much. After a week we see, and we need to hire 5 more temporary workers, because if this custodian position is mainly because of COVID-19, I'm unsure why they're permanent positions then.
So then why don't we, because we just discussed part-time, why don't we turn to temporary part-time as needed? Like we did with the pandemic.
I
What
would,
does that say? Temporary.
It's a lot for me to kind of process. That would be a little better, and I still have more questions, and I think Mark has some too. Maybe that he could probably articulate better than me, but.
No, I was just gonna say, how is that different than the pandemic response assistant?
Because the
So,
pandemic response assist.
Hold on, I just have one.
Okay.
But I guess what I would have liked to have seen, I mean, safety is of the utmost importance. I get that. And something this important, I'm surprised that it's on an addendum to the agenda. I'm surprised we didn't get this analysis a few days in advance. And I ultimately would have liked to have seen, hey, here are 3 choices. We can go with a pandemic response team. We can add to custodial staff. We can do, these outside applications that last up to 30 days in a school. And just a cost comparison and an effectiveness and the benefits and risks of each option would have been what I would expect to see. So we can make the best, most safe decision without sacrificing future programs, because we all know we're in a financial crisis as well. And if we could be just as safe while spending less money, that would be great. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm not concerned with safety, but it's a balance of the two. If we could have as safe an option without having or committing to, let's say, full-time headcount that could ultimately be more costly over the long run, I would have liked to have seen that.
Well, Mark, I did ask for that several weeks ago, and my vision was part-time so that we didn't have to worry about the benefits and we didn't have to spend that extra money. But, I did not get that analysis then. I don't know why, but I didn't. So we are here where we are. And, I just want to be mindful that we're starting school in a couple of weeks. And I don't think we have the luxury of the gift of time to just wait and see if we're going to need extra people. My vision is we have these 14 part-time custodial staff. That is, they're not going to be like the pandemic response team, because the pandemic response team is going to be interacting with children as well. I really want a staff that's dedicated just to cleaning. That's their focus, and that's their mission. So,
well, I would disagree. I think they're just going to take a temperature, and that's it. I mean, unless I'm wrong.
But you can't be, why would we want somebody that's going to be a jack of all trades, and not just be focused on the cleaning? I want somebody just focused on the cleaning, and then the pandemic response we can have with the temperature. And it was my understanding that they would help if there was issues getting Johnny over to a certain room, if there was some type of problem.
The response, people who do the response will be interacting with the student. So if a student is, let's say, not feeling well, the example we were given that stuck to my head is that they're not feeling well, they'll be transferred by that person from the classroom to the nurse. So a person who is cleaning is also going to be, shall we say, perhaps not touching, but interacting with our students, which to me is a little bit of an oxymoron. So perhaps then that's why when Kelly did the buildings and grounds, it was the idea that they would be completely separate, that if we had the custodians, they would strictly be doing custodial work under Steve and Daryl, versus the pandemic would be separate. Their jobs wouldn't be as much as a custodian, it'd be 2 separate positions.
And I know, oh, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
I'm done.
You're done, okay.
For now.
I know that the full board isn't on the Buildings and Grounds Committee, so if for those of us who were on those building tours and had the opportunity to speak with Ms. Savino and Steve and Daryl, we were able to get a more up-close look at what the need might be. And, I don't want to put words in their mouths, but they basically relayed that they will need more staff to get the cleaning done to the level that we would want to see.
That was the question I asked them, and this was the recommendation. So, and like I said, I did ask for part-time to be mindful of funds. I don't know why we moved over to full-time, but that's neither here nor there. We can just take it as 14 part-time would be the same as the recommended 7 full-time. For less cost.
Yeah, I think the takeaway from the Buildings and Grounds Committee was the need is there. You know, they need
mean,
more staff to.
Buildings
keep-
and Grounds Committee is very hands-on, so we really, were able to see a day in the life. And I wish that we all could have seen that. But if you saw what we saw, and it would be my understanding that as committee chair, the board would listen to our thoughts and concerns and take it from there. But I have to recommend these 14 people. I think that it would be the right thing to do, and we have to be mindful of timing as well. We have to hire these people. We have to have them fingerprinted. We do not have the luxury of time to just have a wait and see if we need.
Were any other options explored? I know there's other schools that are doing, apparently there's monthly applications that are supposed to be effective up to 30 days, and you can only, use as needed versus hiring staff. I'm just curious as if any other options were explored.
No, I didn't look at that, Mark.
Yeah.
No,
So I agree that safety is of the utmost importance, and if it is, this type of analysis should have been done earlier. We should have had more options, and I just think we're put in a position now where we make a suboptimum decision. We'll make the best one we can, given the data we have, but we could have done a better job here.
Well, like I said, Mark, I did request that. I do agree with you with what you're saying. I'm very analytical as well, so I would have liked to have seen that. But we're where we are, and
Yeah,
I just don't think we should be penny wise and pound foolish. I just think that, if my child was going to school here, I would want these extra people in and out all day cleaning.
Yeah, and my point, I guess, would be for future, we're going to have more decisions like this for sure over the next year. And so when we can get out in front of it, present different options, cost and benefit, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, and I don't want to make excuses, but I know that this has been an evolving conversation. It's not that the administration didn't wait until August to bring us, recommendations on how to clean the schools. They did bring us recommendations back in June and July for the pandemic response assistance. The board has given feedback since, and it's evolved to where we are now. So it has been an ongoing conversation. Is there room for improvement and lessons learned? Of course, there always is, but I think everybody's plates are really full.
So can I amend the motion then?
Yeah, you may.
Are we going to amend it to,
Well, it depends on
Well,
how
you have
Brad
to hear
words
what
his.
my amendment is to hear what it's going to be.
oh, okay.
He'll make a motion to amend.
I'll make a motion to amend the motion that's on the table to create 14 temporary part-time custodial positions.
Okay, there is a motion to amend. Is there a second?
I second.
A motion by Mr. Sparta, a second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions or comments on the motion to amend for 14 temporary part-time custodians?
I just have a comment about the 14. They're going to need supervision. It's a lot of people to supervise, too.
Well, I have to say, I joined Kelly for both buildings and grounds. The one a few weeks ago was just Kelly and I, Steve and Daryl, and then this one was a lot more people, so I got to see an interesting perspective. And something that I noticed when Kelly and I were on the tour with Steve and Daryl weeks ago, what was that, a few weeks ago? We walked around rooms, and as one example, when we walked around the high school, we walked into a classroom, and it was something as simple as painting. And I kind of looked around. I was like, listen, this needs to be fixed. This is a classroom. It needs to be fixed. It doesn't look good. And I was joking. I said on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the absolute worst, 1 being the best, I said, this is hovering in the 9s. This whole room needs to be cleaned. You need to have new tiles up. You need to paint it. This is not acceptable. And I was very shocked and happy and thrilled when we took the second tour. Out of nowhere, Daryl said, come on over, brought us into that room, the whole thing completely redone. And if anyone's ever seen me clap, I was standing in a high school classroom clapping with no air conditioning. It was very exciting. But it was interesting to see everything that we saw those on that tour weeks ago that we pointed out, they took care of.
Yeah, the entire list that we
The
gave.
entire list that we pointed out, Steve, Daryl, Kelly, and I have to tell you, when we went on the tour that you joined us for the other day, everything was done. Daryl pointed out to us, look, this was done, that was done. So, you know, I can only hope that with that level of getting things done there, that supervision level would continue.
So we'll have monthly buildings and grounds meetings.
She'll do
I would be,
weekly,
I will
so
do
just
weekly,
stop
so
there.
you know my energy level.
Wait a second.
I will definitely
We
do
do have a
that.
new BA coming on who
We're gonna
may
scare them
leave
away.
if we do them weekly.
I know, I was just
I
joking.
just have to
Kelly-
say,
Kelly might do daily.
Steve
so
can
careful.
handle that, but
Right.
I don't know about the new guy or
I
gal,
don't
right?
know.
But look, I commend
We'll
the
see.
Buildings and Grounds Committee. I was only part of the second walkthrough, but it was very helpful. I learned a lot.
Yeah, so I mean, going back to the supervision, I have to say, like, it was very nice to see, and that second tour wasn't even planned, so it wasn't like they knew we were just gonna be coming back, and we had a long list,
Very long list.
very long list, and that whole classroom was completely painted top to bottom, new tiles, everything.
Maybe they don't need supervision.
No, so I'm saying that hopefully, I mean, the supervision was
It's
excellent.
already there.
Even
Okay,
in
good.
that time that we were gone, and we gave a very long list, and one by one, as we went through the second meeting, that wasn't even planned at the
Yeah,
time.
I mean, sometimes it's just a new set of eyes, just
Yeah.
to look at something and say, gosh, can we do this a little differently? And that's what we're doing with Buildings and Grounds, and I think it's really important.
Yeah.
So,
And
just to be clear.
One other question,
This-
sorry.
Go ahead.
The 14 part-time positions, are we saying that they would sunset if and when the pandemic is behind us?
I think the temporary
It was
would
temporary,
be,
was put in the.
would
in the-
indicate as
And
needed.
that's what I was gonna say, we really have to
Yeah.
approve the amendment.
Yeah, so we do have
then
to still approve the amendment.
recommendation.
Yeah.
Now,
So there's
can I
been-
bring up a point to the temporary? The temporary mark, just so you know, from what I've learned, is better than, say, monthly, because what happens is, what holds everything up a lot of times, we learned, are the fingerprinting. So therefore, if you do monthly, if you have someone new coming on, there's a lapse. Where if you say temporary and people stay on, let's say you sign up, we stay on, then that person can stay. But if you just do monthly, then there could be a lag of time. So someone can be temporary, stay on as long as needed, and then whenever that date is set, that, you know, we don't need it, then it's stopped.
So temporary part-time is the wording in the,
Right. And I'll reread the
Yeah, and
recommendation.
that's what we have for the pandemic response people, so it's the same wording
same
as
thing.
them, so.
yeah.
I think that's fair.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote on the motion to amend?
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So to clarify, the motion has been amended, and the motion on the table is, it is recommended that the board approve to create 14 temporary part-time custodial positions and post for the vacancy. The other description lines will not apply.
So moved.
Oh, I don't think we need another.
Yeah, you gotta approve the recommendation now.
Wait, excuse
No, we
me.
had the motion.
Can I,
You voted to amend the motion.
Yeah.
And now you have to approve the
Yeah,
recommendation.
we have to do a vote on that, but I don't think you need another motion. and
right,
second.
I just have a quick question, though.
It's a new recommendation.
Well, we approved the motion, we approved the recommendation that already had a motion on it. I mean, we amended the recommendation that already had a motion on it.
You took a vote if it was okay to amend the motion. You didn't take a vote to approve the motion. Now you need to take a vote to.
No, I know we
approve
need
the
to take a vote.
Okay.
I just don't believe we need another motion and second.
Okay.
Okay,
We
I-
still do need to vote.
Can I just point out one thing?
Yes.
Does the word temporary and does the word part-time, those three words, do they nix out inclusive of benefits?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that
Benefits
would,
would not
because we
apply.
went from full-time inclusive, I just want to make sure part-time does not.
No, and Justin did say that we're striking those last two sentences.
Oh, I didn't hear you said striking,
Yeah.
I thought he said,
Well, he
okay,
said remove or, yes, yes.
Oh,
yes.
I thought you
It
said-
does
I'm
not
sorry.
include benefits, correct.
sorry, thank you.
Curious too, would the rate be similar to that of the part-time pandemic response assistant? Where would you see that
That's a
rate?
good question. The answer is no, it would be half. The rate, I used $45,000 for a full-timer. It's about $22,000 for a part-timer over a year's time. So I would have to prorate that down to a monthly, and let's say somebody, the positions were September, October, November, I couldn't, I'd have to figure out what that is for 3 months of time. Did I answer your question, Mark?
Yeah, I guess I was trying to figure out how, but yeah, that's fine.
It'd be about 5,500, right?
Well, I have 315 over the full year.
I did it, yeah, wait. 22,000 divided by 52, divided by 20, right? Yeah, it's about $20 an hour,
$20 an hour?
something like that, yeah.
Okay, it's close.
It would be,
It's
so
okay.
it's similar to the
Okay.
pandemic.
Yep, good.
I mean, I would, personally, I'd put them at the same rate,
I would too.
since it's a pandemic.
Related,
Yeah,
No, the rate, it will be the same rate. There's a part-time custodial rate
In the contract?
in the VTEA contract, and we will apply that rate to the pandemic response folks, and it'll be the same rate as these
Oh, okay.
part-time custodials.
So then that's what it would be?
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yes, okay.
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 Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Chili?
Yes,
Mrs. Cotter?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes?
Mr. Nunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Kepnes?
everybody, for your consideration on that.
Yeah,
That was
thank you very
Not
much.
to
really
put
important
salt
to me.
on any wounds here, but, so we're not coming back to letter I above that on the addendum, is that correct?
Ms. Davino has to remove that. She has to make a motion.
Okay. I didn't
No,
know
there
if we were
was,
gonna,
there was never a motion on that,
Yeah.
so it's just,
so,
Well,
she
that's
would,
done.
she would have
She
to pull
pulled
the
it.
recommendation.
she's polling in a
She
recommendation.
needs,
Got it.
actually, she needs to officially
Get,
pull it.
pull it.
And
Okay.
recommendation.
If you would like.
Okay.
On I.
Got
I'd
it.
like to remove recommendation I on the
Okay.
addendum.
Okay, very good. Okay. Does that conclude your report, Mr. Kepnes?
Yes, sir, thank you.
That was a long one.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, item N is for public participation, and this is for items on the agenda or any other business. If you would like to comment, please state your name and part of town, and you'll have 5 minutes. We'll begin with members of the public who are here in attendance in person. Those who are viewing through the live stream can submit their comments through the YouTube live stream chat. And please remember to include your name. And
Did you
Mr.
have
Shea,
that-
my computer's dead. Okay, thank you.
Justin, did you have that one that was?
Yeah, Matt's
Okay.
got to bring the computer
Okay.
over. Once he has it set up.
Other people in the public.
Yeah, so do members of the public who are here in attendance in person tonight, would you like to read a comment? All right, if you could step up to right behind the camera, there's a microphone there.
Hi, Karen Zabuda from Highland Lakes. I just have a few questions, so I'm going to go through my questions. What you can answer, great. Some you may have to get back to me, which is, I understand that. Questions has to do with virtual learning. My son Trevor, who's going to be in 8th grade, I chose to keep him home. For one, the transitions, 2 days in, 3 days off, plus weekend. He has a hard time with transition. So that's a big thing. So keeping him home and just trying to keep him on a regular schedule. But I do have a couple of questions that had some parents come up and even discuss with me, and I felt that I'll bring this to you guys and see if you can answer. Some of the questions were, in the beginning, you said that parents would have a choice if we do decide to keep our children at home or in school, and we decide to change that, we do have that option. But if I read the letter correctly, now we don't, we would have to wait a marking period?
No, not a marking period. No, what we had to do was lock down the schedules to make sure that, particularly in K through 5, to make sure that we assigned the right amount of students to all virtual teaching. So we did that, and we locked down the schedule in Glen Meadow and the high school to make sure that they were on the rosters. Once we start with that, your student will be assigned in 8th grade to 6 or 7 different teachers. Now, you've seen his schedule, Trevor's schedule, right? So he has social studies, he has math, he has science. Those people will be teaching him virtually, and if he switches back in, they'll be teaching him live. Okay, so we said to hold for 2 weeks, which is only basically 4 or 5 classes, just to see where we are and see how Trevor's doing at home versus what it would be like in school. Once those 14 days are up, students can move back and forth with the middle school and the high school. K-5, we're going to try to hold them just till the end of September to see how things are going with the online learning versus. We are not trying to limit parents. We are just trying to make sure the schedule was set and make sure, and the last couple of days, just before August 20th, it got a little bit crazy because it was starting to throw off what we were doing on the virtual. So I apologize to anyone if I misspoke, but we really, really want you to know that we've got this set up now, and we're just hoping for the first 2 weeks with Glen Meadow in the high school, and then the first month with K-5.
Okay, next question. So Trevor's schedule, his teachers that he has.
Yes.
Now, if he waits to come back when school's finally open, will these be his teachers
Yes,
for
they
the
will
rest
be.
of the school year?
Yes, they will be.
What happens if he comes back before school's open? Some teachers are deciding to still do virtual learning, and these are some of his teachers. Then does he have different teachers?
No.
coming back?
So he has, I'm going to say a name, just to clarify this thing.
Okay.
Okay. So on his schedule in 8th grade, let's say he has Mrs. Schmidt as his English language arts teacher.
Okay,
She has a roster, and Trevor's name is on it, and it says right next to it, virtual.
right.
She also has on her roster students, and it says blue, and then she has on her roster students, and it says gold. She is responsible for teaching all of them. So when Trevor decides to come back into the classroom, they'll be in her classroom, and we may be beyond blue and gold if all goes well.
Right.
If we're still in blue and gold, we would have to decide at that point whether he was blue or gold.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay,
No.
so the teacher then that would be doing virtual learning, they're
Will
not
be
in the
his teacher
school.
because he's in Glen Meadow.
Right.
And because he's in the high school, he's on their roster and he is there, that's his teacher.
So now if he's in school though,
He would have
he
Mrs.
will
Schmidt
still
in
have
her,
that same teacher?
he would be in
teaching?
Mrs. Schmidt's English class.
Oh, okay, thank you for that.
You got it.
Next thing, say if more parents have decided within 2 or 3 weeks, they're maybe seeing how this is going, and we have possibly close to 100 students deciding to come back, what happens as far as the capacity in a classroom that is allowed for how many students can be in that classroom?
That will actually depend on the state.
Okay.
If the state tells us that there's a certain capacity to the classroom and the students are starting to come back, we're going to have to go to the state and say we're having problems with social distancing because all of our students want to come back.
Okay.
However, if things are going that well, that would be a very great thing.
Yes, it would be. Let's see. Next question. If either a teacher or a student comes down with the virus, or if that student's family has the virus, and the parent calls the school that I have the virus, he could be in 8th grade, but I have 2 other siblings, Lonsbury, Rolling Hills. What happens in that case now if this family has the virus, but we have multiple siblings in other schools?
I was going to say, it depends. Was the person who has the virus in this theoretical situation, was that the person, a child in the school or a family member of the child in the school?
Say whether it's their student or their parent, their mother or father that has it.
Problem is, it's different for everybody.
Okay.
Let's see if I have my chart.
And I think
Did you
that
bring your chart? I didn't bring my
the big
chart.
takeaway that
It's
I
on
got
Department
from,
of Health.
I think the last, I don't know if it was a press conference on this, but every single contact tracing case is so situational.
Yeah.
And it has to be handled in conjunction with your Department of Health, and every single case needs to be handled on its own.
When we find this out, the first call is to the Department of Health.
Right.
And then
And
they
our
will tell us
schools.
how to contact trace or and we have to make an immediate decision based on, but if a child has it, he's quarantined, he'll be quarantined even if he has symptoms, and then he has to be tested. So if a child comes in and we have a couple of symptoms, child will be sent out to the doctor. They have to go immediately to their doctor.
Right.
So pediatricians will have to then make a call whether that person needs to be tested, and once they're tested, they will be quarantined.
Right. But they can't return.
Student be quarantined?
Student is quarantined.
Everybody that he was in contact with?
If his test comes up positive, then we start the contact tracing, which you were talking about, which
But on
needs the
the
class.
other piece, I believe, and I'm sorry, I don't have the chart with
No,
me
then
tonight,
that's what I
Karen,
said.
but
Completely
if I'm not mistaken, that the pediatrician does make the call.
Yes, he
The-
does.
They
She
could,
does.
he or she could submit with a doctor's note that the child can come back to school.
Yes,
But the healthcare experts are the people that we're being told we have to rely on, so that's why it's Department of Health, pediatrician. Our school nurses have done a tremendous job on this. There's updated guidance from the Department of Health that came out yesterday. The school nurses have all of it. I was in correspondence with them saying, I know we are meeting with them next
We're
week.
meeting with them next
But
week.
each case is very, very different. It depends on symptoms, it depends on a positive test, a negative test, exposure, quarantine, travel between states. And Karen, I'm so sorry, I did not bring my updated document with me
No,
tonight.
that's okay. That's why I said whatever you could answer, you answered.
Yeah,
There's questions
I just don't want to give
understand.
misinformation because I can't remember what it says.
Okay, that's no problem. And I just want to share one other thing. Justin, I appreciate everything that you were saying, like social media, because we do have parents that have made comments, whether we're parents that want to keep our children home for different reasons, or even parents that are sending their children. And at this time, nobody should judge. Whatever that reason is, they have a valid reason, and it's really not right what I'm seeing on social media, even on the news. And the goal is, of course, for everybody, want to get our kids back to school. We want to be normal and get on with our normal life, and unfortunately, right now, this is not normal. But also, the quarantine. We don't know if this virus is going to start up again, and that's a scary feeling for a lot of people. The virus has killed numerous people. And true, we had other viruses that killed numerous people also, but not in one shot. They've never needed, unfortunately, a tractor trailer putting body bags because of how many people have died. And it's really scary to think that even parents that are deciding to keep their children home, or people that are second guessing, do I feel comfortable coming to work? You don't know what's home. You don't know their spouses, their parents. You're not sure. And it's just scary because one person, and all of a sudden we can start having a bad thing, and someone in that family can pass away from this. So it's just not a time to judge, and everybody just respect everybody's feelings on it. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Karen, thank you for your support of parents and our teachers. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks so much. Do any other members of the public who are here in the audience tonight have any questions or comments? Okay, we do have a few comments from the live stream. The first one, I believe, was from the first session we were having the technical issues, and this is from Diana De Silva of Highland Lakes. My question is, how will children who aren't returning and only staying home will be taught? In the spring, they were just given assignments to do. Will they log in at the start of school and be taught online? My son is in Glen Meadow, starting 8th grade from home. Thank you for all you do.
Her son will be taught by the teachers who have that child on the schedule. And there will be a virtual piece to that classroom. We have talked about teacher autonomy, but we have been working with our blended learning experts. As a matter of fact, we had a huge administration meeting today, talk about look-fors and what we're looking for in lessons, for virtual lessons. So the virtual lessons will be set up by the teachers, and there will be contact time each day. And those lessons will have video components, which these are things that our teachers are building on all the work that we did this summer.
So there may be some synchronous and some asynchronous
Some of
learning?
it may be synchronous, and some of it will be asynchronous.
Okay.
Which is a traditional blended learning model.
Okay. There are two other comments at this time. Jacqueline Havington, Lounsbury Hollow employee. Will district employees be able to have access to the daily employee pre-screening form before the first day of school? We have been informed that it will be posted to the new school portal, but also that the portal will not open until next Tuesday, the first day for staff. It would be beneficial to know what types of symptoms we are screening for before the first day of school. I have contacted building administration who have said that they don't have access as of yet.
They will, so good question, Jackie. Mr. Shea has worked on, I wouldn't put it up at this time because
Oh,
I
are
need
we
our
not on-
nurses.
Do you
Oh.
want me to talk about it on?
Are we
Well,
on the?
Yes, I do.
Hold on, wait a second, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, I'd like our nurses to approve the form first, is what I was going to say. So my understanding, unless I missed some emails, was that we do have a screening form. This is for Jackie and for all of our faculty. We have a screening form, right, that we are looking to utilize through Genesis and/or School 5, but definitely through Genesis. However, I want to make sure that it is approved by our school nurses first. If the form you have is approved by our school nurses and you want to show it, then I'm happy with that.
So I spoke with the nurses to meet with them next week.
Right.
But I don't know if the decision was to wait until after the nurses see it. For me, it's a check mark. Before I walk out of here tonight,
I know.
I can send.
Yeah, I mean,
send
I would just, for me, I just want to make sure that our nurses, I've been running
Okay.
everything through our nurses.
I mean, if you want me to try to catch Kathy Toth tomorrow to have her.
Yeah, and I do know that the nurses are meeting next week on September 3rd. The administration is probably going to have meet with the nurses right after. The nurses have their district-wide meeting. So, but yes, the faculty and staff will see it prior to when they return. But I just wanted our school nurses to make sure that it was good with them. I just feel better having our medical people
Okay,
take a
good.
look at it, so.
And part two of that question, both on our reopening website, we already have a link to the Department of Health's form, which is what we use, like it is that form.
Right.
And then in my SMORE newsletter I sent to all staff yesterday, I actually showed
Yes.
a video of the form. And I thought the video was pretty clear, so hopefully they should be able to see, if they just pause it, you should be able to read those questions. So that is available. I can even send a screenshot if you really
Yeah,
want.
and for Jackie, if she's interested, I'm gonna guess, Matt, you were on the New Jersey Department of Health. It's called COVID-19, New Jersey Department of Health, COVID-19 Public Health Recommendations for Local Health Departments for K-12 Schools. If you Google the form, if you Google what I just said, I'm sorry, you'll be able to pull up the entire report, and Matt did take that directly from the Department of Health. I'm going to assume that our school nurses are comfortable, but I don't want to make that assumption.
Okay, good.
I've run everything through them.
Very good. The next comment is from Jennifer Bott of Vernon. How will the virtual schedule be handled for Glen Meadow? The high school has to follow class times as they would be in person. Will Glen Meadow be the same, or is there flexibility? Also, in November, how can we expect to be back in school full-time, all students, if we still need to socially distance 6 feet apart?
Second part first, she's absolutely right. And then the first part, the schedule will be synchronous and asynchronous. And again, that will be based on what the teacher does in the classroom. So it will
Okay.
it will not follow period by period unless the teacher who is teaching that child says, 8 o'clock, you'll be on.
Okay.
Chuck, what do you mean by she's absolutely right?
About November. How do we bring back, in the first
Yeah,
week in
almost
November,
3,000.
all of our students 5 days a week if social distancing is still in place? That's her question.
Right.
And
So
I
the
think she's
answer-
absolutely, the answer is, you can't.
We don't know, yeah.
Yeah, just clarifying that. Okay.
And the dates within your schedule have been targets, not hard
From
Right.
the,
fast.
from the
They're-
outset,
From the
they've
beginning.
been targets.
Yeah, they're guidelines, and what the state asked us to develop was a reopening plan,
Yes.
not an entire
Right.
school year plan. And
Right.
I've said many times that we have to be really flexible and adaptable through this. So for Jennifer, we to reiterate what Chuck said, you're correct. We don't have the answer to that yet, but we will, we'll see. I'm sure we'll have more state guidance as we've been getting it, even though some of us, including myself, haven't always been happy with it. I'm sure that we'll hear from the state many times between now and November.
We're hearing on a daily basis on some of these things.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, there's one last comment that's come through, and that is from Bob Falcon Jr. of Vernon Township. Will teachers be tested a lot?
No.
No.
Tested a lot.
Why would the teachers be tested unless they had?
No, unless
why-
there's
why
symptoms,
would-
they won't be
yeah,
tested.
why would they do that?
And, you know, I mean, the CDC, I think, even just recently came out with a recommendation earlier this week that even with symptoms, they're not necessarily recommending people get tested. It goes back to the doctor, and the doctor, your personal doctor would decide whether or not that person gets testing. That's a CDC
Yeah.
recommendation, so I'm assuming Bob means tested. He's talking about COVID.
That's my
That's your
assumption.
assumption, yeah, me too.
Are there any additional comments from anybody?
One more.
One last one? Okay. This is from Ava Marr of Highland Lakes. How will the scanning of student IDs work, and where will we need to scan them when we go places in the high school?
Good question. The IDs photos are being shot the first week of school,
Right.
or next week. And so we just got an email on that about an hour ago. And the idea simply is with the children having the ID, it may help us with bathrooms, et cetera, trying to make sure that we're tracing, if you will, how our students' movements around the building, so that if anything shows up where a child was in the bathroom right after someone who tests positive, we would be able to inform them.
It's also to reinforce the limiting of students in certain areas. I mean, one of the
Absolutely.
plans for the high school and for other schools as well is, particularly at the high school, when you've got so many children all around the building, so that we don't have many children in the bathroom at the same time. You know, that was the other consideration with the scanning, was to
Yes.
try to limit the movement. We don't want to have many children out and about. We really, part of the COVID challenge is to contain that as much as possible.
But that's a good question, Eva, thank you.
Okay, Matt, are we all good on the live stream?
I have one more.
Okay. Darlene Arnott of Glenwood. How will special services be provided for IEPs, example, speech?
And they added after that, I'm sorry, while virtual learning.
For virtual learning students.
Our goal is to make sure that our students who are virtual learning are getting the services that their IEP demands, Darlene. So it's important that you know that whatever those services are, we will try and provide them. We have people that may be virtual, able to do that, or
Right.
they will be doing that after the students leave, working virtually with your student.
Okay.
Good question.
All right. Seeing no other comments, we'll close it to public participation at this time. Item O is open board member forum.
I have a quick question. At the high school, I've been asked, is the schedule going to rotate, or will it stay periods 1 through 9? Like every day? Is that known yet? I've been asked a few times, and I said I didn't know, I'd ask.
I think it was in the opening podcast with the high school. I believe they're doing straight through 1 through 9.
Straight through 1 through 9.
Shorter periods as opposed to rotation.
They were really contemplating continuing with the rotation, but they
Right.
decided to go straight 1
Just-
through 9.
1 through 9 is the same the next day, 1 through 9? Okay, not rotating.
Okay.
You know that she had set it all up before this all happened to be a rotation schedule in the
Well,
morning and the afternoon.
Yeah, but
And
then,
a set lunch period, and then,
yeah,
okay.
it's just, I mean, I'm sure, and that's one of the biggest things I'm hearing, everyone really appreciates the podcast, but they also, all of them collectively, you know, you're looking at about 15 minutes each, and just, some people are saying just to like have that information in writing.
Okay, fair
So that
enough.
way you could just quickly scan through, because some parents
Yeah.
have said to me, you know, I have multiple kids in multiple schools,
Right.
and I have a podcast here, a podcast there. And then I'm saying to myself, wait, was that at the high school? Was
Yeah.
that at this school? And they just said, you know, just bullet points or just notes, so that way it will just say the name of the school and, you know, what it says. They were
That's a-
appreciative,
That's a
but,
fair assessment.
yeah.
You
that's
saying
what I-
that you're.
We tried to get as much information out as possible. We were doing a lot of videos, so it's a
Yeah.
fair assessment.
You're saying that you don't sit up on a Friday night watching all the podcasts from our schools?
Of course,
'Cause
I save them all week, and I
I
put
can't say I'm not
Netflix to the
guilty of
side. I don't continue with my series, so I can catch up on all,
Yeah.
like, 10
It's like a date night. You just
10
watch all the
podcasts.
podcasts. Yeah.
Warms the cockles of my heart to hear that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I believe it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to tell Steve that it's been a pleasure working with you for 8.5 years. And We definitely had our differences over time, there's no doubt.
It's okay.
But at least on your end, it was always professional, maybe not on mine. I'll miss our conversations about money and how to strategize and how to use it as wisely as we can. And I did check our calendar here, and Thursday, October 15th is a BOE meeting, and I believe your retirement is the 16th.
Yes.
So I expect you to be at that meeting.
I'll bring my guitar.
Okay.
Oh, that would be fun.
That's a good
So, yeah,
idea.
but
a
all
little
seriousness,
musical
I'm happy
send-off.
for you. When you called and
Thank you,
told me,
Brad. That means a lot.
I think my response was,
Good for you.
I'm happy for you, good for you.
Yes.
Everybody should have a very long, healthy retirement, and I wish nothing else for you with that.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I would like to say, I want to wish all of the administration and faculty, staff, and families a successful opening for school for 2021. It's been quite a busy time preparing for this, and this past week we've walked through the schools, and there really is a lot happening. There was a buzz for the new year in the schools, and I sincerely wish everyone a smooth and safe opening.
Thanks, John.
Let's remember that emotional health is critical and a critical component for growth and learning. Teachers and administration and families are in uncharted territory. So the world community is in such a state of unrest. Let's commit as a school and as a community to be kind.
Amen.
And good luck to all, and go Vikes.
Yeah, very well said, Joe. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, Joe.
Too much time on the internet. I've seen so much.
Yeah,
It's awful.
Terrible.
ugly.
That's what happens when you're retired.
Some of my relatives too.
Anybody else?
I'm just going to do it just really quickly. I want to thank the administration for their continued hard work. I want to thank the staff and workers and teachers. You are essential to this community, and I know it's perhaps unsettling going back, but I want you to know that it does not go unnoticed, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, seeing no other board member comments, can we have a motion to
Moved.
adjourn? Mr. Sparta, second. Mr. Sweeney, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have adjourned. Thank you.